We know the electric vehicle adoption is picking up pace. Lithium-ion batteries are central to this transition. We all know about the excitement surrounding the lithium sector, as well as the broader EV battery material supply chain. However, graphite is an interesting component of that. Of course, we know that graphite anodes are a key component within the lithium-ion batteries, but the graphite sector definitely hasn't had the same excitement or exuberance surrounding it like the lithium sector has over this past period. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into the graphite sector. We'll talk about graphite anodes, we'll talk about the supply chains, we'll talk about the synthetic versus natural graphite dynamic as well. It's a fascinating time. We know that this mega trend surrounding the EV adoption is only going to continue to grow into the next decade and beyond. And so today we're going to explore this discussion. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. We make daily videos. So if you're new here, welcome. Make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on so you won't miss any of our daily episodes. So I guess the first question on your mind might be, why graphite? What is the opportunity and what actually is graphite? So graphite is the largest component in the lithium-ion battery by weight, and it is actually within the graphite anode. So there's a few different components of the lithium-ion battery, and graphite is a predominant material used in the graphite anode. However, in terms of the use case, there is much more of a broad use case for graphite than just within the graphite anode. Predominantly, it's actually an industrial use at the moment. However, of course, as the electric vehicle transition continues to grow, the need for graphite anodes will continue to increase. At the moment, around a quarter of the total natural flake graphite is utilized for graphite anodes and broader battery uses. Of course, this is likely to expand moving forward. And then just thinking about the supply dynamic. At the moment, there is currently sufficient supply of flake graphite. However, supply pressures are likely to continue to grow as EV demand does pick up pace. We can see on the right here, this is a visual out of a recent investor presentation from Talga. They've forecast that the demand for graphite by scale is likely to continue to grow exponentially over this next decade. In terms of location at the moment, both graphite production as well as downstream refining and processing for anode, the supply is centralized in Asia, with China a key component within all of that. It's an interesting material. I'd love to know your thoughts, so drop in a comment below what you think about the graphite sector, which companies you're looking to get exposure to it through, and how you think the trends towards this EV adoption are going to grow moving forward. And so you might be wondering, what's an anode? Of course, we know graphite is the key material used in many of the graphite anodes around the world, but at its core, the anode is the negative electrode of the cell. The graphite anode is associated with the release of electrons into the external circuit. There's a bit of a visual here on the right here to help you conceptualize this. Graphite is the most commonly used material for EV battery anodes, and at the moment what really stands out about it is there's no real substitute for graphite anodes. In terms of the cathodes, there's a range of different compositions and chemistries. However, graphite's quite unique in terms of the anode side. Of course, there's a range of different alternative solutions that have been forecast or discussed moving forward. Many of these are still in the R&D phase, and they are still a while off in terms of commercialization. I'm sure you're familiar with the solid state battery discussion. This still does look like it's a while off in terms of wide scale commercialization. And then of course silicon's been discussed as well, whether in isolation as a silicon anode standalone, or potentially what we may continue to see moving forward increasingly as the lithium-ion battery market matures is silicon used as an additive to enhance the current performance of graphite anodes as well. It's a fascinating time. There's a lot to unpack. Of course, we know that the lithium-ion battery market is still in its early stages, and as it continues to mature and develop, we're likely to see these dynamics evolve. And so that brings us to the discussion, synthetic versus natural graphite. I'm sure you're familiar with it. There's, of course, two sides of this coin. Natural graphite is mined, and then it goes all the way through the process before eventually being refined into purified spherical graphite, and then ultimately that can be utilized as a feedstock into anode production. Synthetic, on the other side, utilizes byproducts from the fossil fuel production, often petroleum coke, to then develop synthetic graphite, which ultimately is used into anode production as well. However, both of these have got some different factors and different benefits on each side of the coin. Natural graphite is lower cost and it's less energy intensive to produce, while synthetic graphite at times has been initially preferred for its consistency and purity, though we have seen in some sectors of the market a bit of a trend towards natural graphite, often because of the lower cost, as we know battery manufacturers and producers are looking to bring down the cost curves moving forward. Synthetic is a higher cost for production, and this really centers around how energy intensive it is. You have to be heating up the feedstock, and this can go for many days, so of course it's less environmentally friendly, as well as being that higher cost. Depending on which analysis or which forecast you're looking into, at this current time, synthetic graphite makes up over 50% of the split of the market, and then natural graphite makes up a vast majority of the balance, though not completely. However, moving forward, it does look like natural graphite may continue to take a bit more of its share of the pie. Though I do think what's important to understand is that many manufacturers and producers at the moment, to balance up cost as well as performance, often achieve this by blending synthetic and natural, and depending on the demands for the batteries, the end use cases, the size of these, they will prefer different types of synthetic and natural blends or different sides of the graphite coin. And so it does look clear that both synthetic and natural graphite will have sustained use cases and demand moving forward over this next decade. Of course, the market will continue to evolve, so it'll be interesting to see how the preferences go, how battery chemistries and compositions are, and the types of changes that we see in terms of demands from the manufacturers and the producers. But both synthetic, both natural graphite will have a seat at the table moving forward, it looks like, according to the forecasts. And so you might be wondering, where will graphite head? What is the distribution of it? How does it look? We talked about it at the top of the video that China is currently the dominant graphite producer. Interestingly, however, the actual resources themselves, Turkey has the largest resource at the moment. Chinese production is likely, however, to consolidate moving forward due to environmental issues. Of course, we've talked about how environmentally intensive it can be, particularly on the synthetic graphite side. So at the moment, with this consolidation, even though Asian markets are dominating the downstream refinement and anode production, we're seeing a range of different early stage projects and juniors start to look to bring their projects online over these next 5 to 10 years. There's a range of different projects coming online from Africa to Europe, some in Australia as well, and many of these are vertically integrated. So that's going from mine all the way through potentially to purified spherical graphite, or in some cases, like with Telga Resources, they're aiming to bring a project all the way through from mine through to anode production over in Europe. It's a fascinating time. We'd love to know your thoughts, so drop in a comment below what you think about this graphite sector and the companies that you're looking into to potentially get some exposure or some insights into the trend moving forward. And so then, what's the future forecast? As we've stated, demand for both graphite and consequently anodes as a use case within the lithium-ion battery market is likely to rise significantly. You can see this forecast provided by Bloomberg over this next decade. There is a significant uplift, and graphite there in the black has got a massive exponential uplift, particularly as you get out into the back end of the decade. Of course, as we've discussed, it's previously been considered a relatively emissions-intensive industry, and so there is going to be more and more of a focus on how you can bring down the embodied energy of the process. Whether, of course, that looks like natural flake graphite, which, of course, has a lower energy intensivity, or there's different types of projects like Telga Resources that we mentioned before that are looking to bring on their projects and utilize renewable energy to bring down that embodied side. It's going to be fascinating to see. We know that there's a growing importance in decarbonisation. There may be carbon taxes that are continuing to be brought out to the market moving forward. We know there's a significant regulatory push as well in regions around the world to bring down embodied energy and to move towards carbon neutrality. And so producers and manufacturers will be looking at the raw materials and the inputs into their supply chains to help them to bring this down. As we did discuss as well, alternative anode solutions are something to bear in mind and to continue to watch how this evolves moving forward. They are still a while off in terms of wide-scale commercialization, but it is something to discuss, it's something to continue to watch, and of course it's going to be interesting to see how this broader sector evolves in years to come. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button, feel free to share it out. As mentioned, we make daily videos. We'd love to have you join the community. So if you haven't yet, make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on so you'll be updated every time a new video comes out to market. As you guys know, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing we discuss is financial advice. These are just general discussions to be that starting spot for you to do your own research from. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one soon. For now, stay well and happy investing.